How is it that people like doctors end up with less wealth at retirement than your average Joe Schmo? How is it that they, with fatter paychecks, end up with less? To answer that, consider the following scenarios. Scenario 1, Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo graduates from a 4-year university at 23 and gets employment in entry-level management with a $50,000 a year salary. Joe then decides immediately to start putting away 10% of his income towards building his wealth. Scenario 2, Jane Brain. Jane Brain graduates from a 4-year university at 23 as well. However, Jane decides to further her education and become a doctor. She continues to go to school for another 8 years, does her residency for another 4 years, and becomes a doctor after 12 years at age 35. While Joe was working and putting away 10% of his salary for the last 12 years, Jane has been furthering her education and accumulating school debt at the same time. So let's do the numbers. Joe, assuming he gets only a small living expense raise annually of 3% and an employer match of 5% towards his 401k, in 12 years at age 35 is able to accumulate over $200,000. Assuming a 12% return in his 401k, if Joe continues this trend and does not change anything, at retirement age 65, Joe will have close to $10 million. Yeah, 10 million. That's 10 million cheeseburgers, 100,000 pairs of shoes, 1 Stephen Curry. Now, let's examine Jane's situation. At age 35, Jane will now start generating income as a doctor. Of course, it depends on the specialty of Jane, but for the sake of this video, we will assume she makes an average doctor salary of $160,000. By the way, the average student debt for a doctor is $175,000. Now, if Jane affords to put away 10% of her income and retire at 65, assuming the same return and same matching contribution as Joe, Jane would have close to $8 million. Not quite as much as Joe. Time is money. Building wealth has little to do with the amount of money that you make, and more so to do with the time and the discipline of saving consistently. This teaches us all something about accumulating wealth. Begin earning and investing early in your adult life. That will enable you to outpace the wealth accumulation levels of even the so-called gifted kids from high school. Remember, wealth is blind. It doesn't care if you're well educated. Also, keep in mind that these highly educated earners may not have as much in wealth as time passes. Mo money, mo problems. Doctors, as well as others with advanced degrees, are expected to play their parts and live up to their status. As a result, they overspend by living in luxury upscale neighborhoods, driving expensive cars, and wearing expensive suits. And they do this while still paying down those expensive $175,000 student loans. On the other hand, Joe doesn't have to live in an upscale neighborhood, nor does he have to drive expensive cars, or even wear expensive suits. In spite of being wealthy at retirement, Joe will not be out of place living in a modest home or driving used cars. This will only help him increase his wealth. In addition, Joe will not have to live with as much student debt as Jane. So remember to save early and be consistent because
wealth is blind.